You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Raw Reaction on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. I am your host, Frank Vaughn, joined by my cohort in crime, CW. What's up, brother?
Not much. Just got through watching arguably better Raw than the one after the Rumble.
Yeah, I tell you what, I thought this show was a lot better tonight than it was last week. You know what's funny is I was looking online last week, and there were actually a lot of folks that enjoyed last week's show, and I was kind of surprised by that. You know, we laid out all the reasons why we didn't think it was all that great, but hey, to each their own, I guess. But this week's show, I tell you what, if wrestling is what you like, man, did you get wrestling tonight. Last week, we were talking about how cool it was that there were 7 matches on the show. Tonight, there were 9.
This week, they did away with a lot of the promo segments and let the wrestling speak for itself for the most part, and I really think it was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, you know, we talked last week about how we noticed that they were doing the backstage cell phone camera promos. Like, we wondered if that was because everybody was tired and they were pre-recording those so that they didn't have to do anything in the ring after the week they just went through with, you know, Raw 25 in New York and then the Royal Rumble in Philadelphia. And so we wondered last week, is this something they were just doing for tonight to sort of cover that gap, you know, so that folks didn't have to actually physically be there to cut promos and stuff? And, well, if it was, then they must have decided they liked it, because we got a lot of that tonight. There were only a couple of in-ring segments where people actually talked tonight. The rest of it was all backstage cell phone camera type stuff. CW, I asked this last week because we thought it might just be a temporary thing, but now that it looks like it's becoming a thing, buy or sell on this cell phone camera promo thing?
Honestly, I think it depends on which one is doing the promo with the cell phone, because I have noticed that some people are better at it than others, and so the quality of the promo increases when you have people that have, have a steadier hand and things like that, the camera not all shaking. So I think, it all depends on who's doing the promo with the camera at the time.
Yeah, I think the quality of these things that we're getting ranges anywhere from Blair Witch Project all the way up to somebody really knows what they're doing. So, I guess it's around to stay, so we might as well get used to it. What I wish would happen, though, especially after tonight, because I think tonight they relied on that just a little too much. I mean, just going down the list here, there were 3, 4, 5. There were like 5 of those tonight where people cut promos using their cell phone cameras. It was maybe a little too much. So your more talented talkers, let them go ahead, come out to the ring and set up their whole deal. Those that you really don't only want to hear a snippet from, like Braun Strowman's not a great promo cutter, so it was okay that he did a cell phone promo tonight. But then you had John Cena doing one too, and he's one of the best talkers in the history of the business. I didn't really see or understand the point of that. Maybe these things really were pre-recorded, pre-edited, so that they could save time and make more time for the matches. I don't know. But, I guess on the other hand, we did get 9 matches tonight. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and just jump into this right quick. We started the show right off the top with 2 different cell phone promos. One was Bray Wyatt talking about Reigns and how, he did his usual routine of his ominous, dark, I'm going to claim your soul type crap. And then Reigns came back with his, yeah, you suck, Wyatt, I'm going to beat you in the ring, blah, blah, blah. And that led into a match immediately between Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns, and this was an Elimination Chamber qualifier. So we were still trying to populate that match for the next pay-per-view, and I'll just cut to the chase on this. Roman Reigns won because, of course, he did. Honestly, when's the last time Bray Wyatt won a meaningful match? Well, he actually covered that in his cell phone promo. He won the Elimination Chamber last year and took the title home, didn't he?
Yep, he covered that, but the way that, like we said last Raw, Everybody can see the way this is going, the way the booking's going. So it wasn't a surprise, and it was predictable. Everything has been very predictable as far as Roman Reigns is going, as far as Bray Wyatt is going, and for that matter, let's bring into it Woken Matt Hardy. As far as the whole Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy thing is going, that has been very predictable.
Well, okay, yeah, so while Reigns and Wyatt were wrestling in the ring, they flipped backstage, and there's Matt Hardy watching the match on a TV backstage, and he had that just kind of that weird, toothy, maniacal thing that he's trying to affect now, and that's fine, whatever. So anyway, Reigns ends up winning the match because, of course, he did, right? And after that, Wyatt kind of looks pissed off at himself, like he's sort of disappointed at the outcome of the match. And then he stands up and turns around, and Matt Hardy's waiting there for him with a twist of fate. Dropped him right where he stood. All right, we get it. Bray Wyatt is not going to be in the Elimination Chamber match. At least we think he won't, but we'll get back to that in a second. But apparently there's still beef between Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. I said this last week. I'm going to say it again. If they're not going to let Matt Hardy go all in with this woken, broken, whatever you want to call it, gimmick, if they're not going to let him take it off the deep end, then they need to just kill it. Seriously. Let Bray Wyatt beat him, make kind of a big deal about it, and then Matt Hardy can just go away until Jeff is ready to be a tag team again. That's my opinion. Now, on the other hand, if they're willing to let him go way off the deep end with it, I mean way off like he did in TNA, if they're willing to let him do what he does with this thing, then let's see what happens. I just really wish they would have started him off smaller than Bray Wyatt. And I say that kind of jokingly because Bray Wyatt isn't a whole lot anymore because he hasn't won a meaningful match in nearly a year. But I really wish they would have started Matt Hardy off on somebody else and then built to Bray Wyatt.
You can't get much lower. What, Heath Slater? Zack Ryder? Who?
Well, I mean, but the way they're building this, though, you got the creepy bearded guy versus the creepy toothy guy. If they were going to do creepy versus creepy, I would have liked to have seen them build toward that instead of just right out of the chute, all right, you're getting Bray Wyatt. Because, look, Bray Wyatt needs a win in the worst way. Woken Matt Hardy needs a win in the worst way right now because he's still trying to establish this character in the so-called WWE universe. So they both have to win this feud, but only one of them can. That's why I wish they would have built some credibility in both of these guys before eventually crashing them into each other. Bray Wyatt really badly needs some character rehab. He very badly needs some credibility rehab in the ring. Matt Hardy needs to build up some credibility with the WWE fans who didn't watch him do this in Impact Wrestling. They both need to build credibility, and throwing them at each other right away means only one of them is going to be able to do that. So I really wish that this had been planned out a little better than this.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, to even put them together without something on the line. Period. What's on the line here? Who gets to be the craziest? Is that what's on the line? I don't understand. I see there's a lot of things that just it doesn't make for a good feud because there's nothing on the line. There is no real rhyme or reason to it. And to be honest, it shows people aren't really getting invested in it.
No, you're right. They're not. And it's going to be hard to at this point. Like I said, we've heard Bray Wyatt come out and cut all these ominous promos about how he's going to reap your soul and follow the buzzards and all this other nonsense for several years now. And he had his one title win last year. He immediately gave it back to Randy Orton at WrestleMania. And ever since then, it's just been nothing. I mean, he's just there for, I don't know. He's just there. He's kind of window dressing at this point. You know, he comes out there, you know what you're going to get from the promo, and then he's going to lose an important match. That's just his shtick these days. Matt Hardy, you could take that exact same description I just put on the last year of Bray Wyatt's career, and you can put that on Matt Hardy's entire singles career, with the exception of the ECW championship that he got to hold briefly. Matt Hardy, that's been his whole career. Fans love the guy. He does great things. He's a good wrestler. He's a great character, but you know Vince is not going to push him to the top of the card. He's just not going to do it. And so along comes Matt Hardy after the greatest success of his career in a company not named WWE. He captured the imaginations of wrestling fans around the world. And then he comes back home to the WWE, and guess what? Vince is waiting with a handshake and the same treatment he's been giving Matt Hardy his entire singles career. Nothing is different. He went ahead and let him go ahead and do this woken, broken character, but he's still treating him like Matt Hardy circa 2006. He's not going to push this. So, like we said last week, I'm forced to believe at this point that Vince only let him do this character just so he could crush it, because it's not something that he created. Your thoughts?
It's hard to say. On one hand, it gave the woken universe, woken, broken, whatever you want to call it, universe, more viewership with more, the casual audience, because more people definitely watch WWE than a lot of your smaller companies, and some people may not have ever seen, for instance, I don't get, the channel that Spike TV's on. I don't. Pop or whatever. I don't get Pop. I don't get that channel. So I haven't got to watch Impact in a while. So I never got to see the gimmick itself. I heard about it, but I never got to see it.
Yeah, well, it's all over YouTube at this point. But let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. First of all, Matt Hardy has already gone further with this gimmick than I thought Vince would ever let him do. I wasn't sure Vince was even going to let this thing get out of the chute, okay? But he did, and the funny thing is I'm hearing these diehard, broken Matt Hardy fans talking about what a disappointment this is and how watered down it is and how it's not going anywhere, and they need to take the handcuffs off of Matt Hardy and let him be his distorted, broken, brilliant self, right? But Vince has already let this go further than I thought he would. In other words, it lasted more than 1 week. There's another wrestler that used to be in WWE that went over to TNA and achieved great success. He wound up becoming a multiple-time world champion. He had great success. But when he comes back to WWE, he just gets to be Bubba Ray Dudley, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. It's hard to say exactly at this point what's going to happen with the whole Woken gimmick. To be honest, I think they pulled the trigger on it a little bit earlier, mainly because I guess a lot of people were clamoring for it. They didn't like just regular Matt Hardy, so they went ahead and pulled the trigger on it. I think it could have been built up for a little bit longer than what it was, and then whenever it happened, it would have been something the fans were invested in, but at the rate it happened, we want it. But then they got what they wanted, and they found out, no, we didn't. It was more the anticipation of them wanting it than them really wanting it.
Well, and some of this is Jeff Hardy's fault, okay? And I don't mean necessarily because he got injured, although that did kind of hasten the arrival of so-called woken Matt Hardy. What I mean by that is Jeff Hardy is very different from Matt Hardy in the sense that Vince did push him to the top. Jeff Hardy was a world heavyweight champion. Jeff Hardy was a WWE champion. Vince let Jeff Hardy run with the top titles in business, okay? He didn't let Matt Hardy do that. So when the Hardy Boys came back, and by the way, I was in Orlando at WrestleMania last year when they debuted, and I mean, if that football stadium had had a roof, the audience would have blown it right off. You should have seen the reception that the Hardy Boys got when they came out of nowhere, and then ended up winning the tag titles that night. So they were the WWE universe was okay with the Hardy Boys coming back. But the problem is Jeff is a more accomplished singles wrestler than Matt is. So Jeff Hardy in WWE is a very different person than Jeff Hardy anywhere else is. And as long as they were together as a tag team, there was always going to be apparent that at some point Vince was probably going to start pushing Jeff as a singles wrestler again, because he can still do all the stuff he did. Maybe not as quickly as he used to, and he's all beat up and banged up. But Jeff Hardy is a more captivating person in and of himself than Matt Hardy is. Broken Matt Hardy, on the other hand, is a whole different story. And the WWE Universe was clamoring for broken Matt Hardy. But what they're getting is they're getting Vince McMahon's watered-down, mowed-down version of woken Matt Hardy. And he's already dropped a match to Bray Wyatt. He's reduced to jumping him from behind after he loses other matches. So basically at this point, we've taken two very strong characters and turned them into jobbers, and then we've had them feud with each other, right? I mean, this is kind of the equivalent of of spending a lot of time and money having Zack Ryder and Heath Slater feud with each other. They're both jobbers, and honestly, what would be the point of that feud? And that's the question I'm asking right now about Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. What is the point of this? if we're not going to let Matt Hardy go way off the deep end with this character, and we're not going to let Bray Wyatt win any meaningful matches, what is the point of this feud?
I don't really see it. Like I said, there was no real build for it. There's nothing on the line. There is no point for the feud. I can't even justify the feud. I can't. Maybe it's like, we ain't got nothing to do with you, and we ain't got nothing to do with you. Hey, y'all two fight.
Right. So we can sum up match number one thusly, okay? It was obvious Roman Reigns was going to win that because there's no way he's not going to be in the Elimination Chamber match. And after they showed Matt Hardy watching the match on TV backstage, it was obvious to me that he was going to get involved in the match or maybe jump him afterwards, which is exactly what he ended up doing. So, off of that match, the next thing we saw was a backstage segment where Seth Rollins approaches Jason Jordan and says, hey, we've got a rematch for our tag titles tonight. Are you ready to go? And Jordan's all, oh, yeah, I've been medically cleared. I'm feeling good. Let's do this, brother. And Rollins is like, dude, don't screw me on this. You be ready to go, and let's go do this thing. That's called foreshadowing, boys and girls. We'll get to that later on. Match number 2, Finn Balor was supposed to be taking on Dash Wilder in a singles match. However, Scott Dawson decided to grab a microphone, which I didn't know what we were going to get out of that, but he just said, hey, we're tag team specialists. We want to be a tag team. How about you grab one of your club buddies and let's do this? Finn Balor settled on Carl Anderson, and off we went with the match. Now, the Revival is a good tag team. They really are. They are tag team specialists, and they are good. But was there any question that the Balor Club was going to win this match?
I was hoping, but I already knew what the result was going to be. I mean, I was hoping that the Revival would get some sort of push because they need it, because, they're back, they're healthy, but no, I already knew it wasn't going to happen, unfortunately. With the way that the Balor Club is being pushed here lately, I understand the loss. I respect it, and I can't really say that I'm really too disappointed. I mean, I wish that the Revival had won. I'm not going to lie, but can I say that I'm disappointed in the match? No, it was a good match.
It was. It was very good action. It was well executed by both teams. If I had any criticism of this match at all, it would be this. Why was Finn Balor in this match? Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are already an established tag team. The Revival is an established tag team. Why was Finn Balor in this match instead of Luke Gallows? See, they had an opportunity here, in my mind, to put the two actually established tag teams against each other and build up the tag team division that lately has only consisted of Sheamus and Cesaro and Rollins and Jordan. That's all the Raw tag team division consists of right now. Ever since Jeff Hardy got hurt and Matt Hardy went off and started messing around with Bray Wyatt, now all we have that they focus on, for the most part on Raw, is Sheamus and Cesaro, Rollins and Jordan, since Dean Ambrose got hurt. So why not put Gallows and Anderson in a match against the Revival so that this can be an actual tag team division feature, and the winner gets momentum going toward maybe a shot at the tag team titles? Why not do it that way? The problem I see on Raw right now is the tag team division only exists to further singles feuds, like tonight. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there now. Jason Jordan later on in the show decides he can't go, and so Rollins finds a replacement for him for his match against the Bar. And it wound up being Roman Reigns, who wrestled his second match of the night. And then a bunch of shenanigans happened there to further singles issues. I don't understand why they can't let the tag team division be the tag team division. We're letting the women's division be the women's division. We're letting the cruiserweight division be the cruiserweight division. Why is the tag team division only being used as a storyline prop for singles feuds? I don't understand why Finn Balor was in this match tonight.
There was no point for, as much as I love Finn Balor, there was no point for him to be there. It would have been better to see Anderson and Gallows go up against the Bar or, anybody else, because, they have the tag team chemistry. But when you have, two people that don't normally tag, such as Carl Anderson and Finn Balor going up against people that tag frequently, the Revival, it doesn't make it, the win, like, the win, yeah, I'll take it. They won, yeah, I get it, because booking reasons, yada, yada, yada. But from, if I was just sitting back looking at it as what each one specializes in, the win didn't really make much sense to me.
Well, sadly, I actually do have an answer to my question, and it is that Finn Balor is kind of in the Bray Wyatt doghouse. Finn Balor, the first ever Universal Champion, a title that Brock Lesnar holds right now, a title that's also been held by Goldberg, okay, a title that's been held by Kevin Owens, guys that Vince likes. Finn Balor was the first person ever to hold that championship, and now he's got nothing going on. Who is he in a feud with right now? Nobody. So they threw Gallows and Anderson in with him because of their history in ROH, or New Japan, rather, and that's fine, okay? But there is no clear direction for Finn Balor right now. There just isn't one. So he's getting thrown into matches that he shouldn't even be in right now because there's nothing else for him. If Finn Balor were being treated with the respect I think he deserves as a singles competitor, he wouldn't have been in that match tonight. He would have been worried about whoever he's feuding with right now. He would have been worried about chasing a championship right now. But he's just kind of a rudderless ship right now, floating in the middle of the ocean. And it's just like, you know what? Here, you need something to do tonight. Go do this. We're going to bench a guy that's actually a tag team partner of the guy we're putting you with so that you can just have something to do tonight. And that's kind of sad to me. I think Finn Balor deserves better than this. I think honestly, I hate to put it this way, but I'll just go ahead and do it. I think Finn Balor, talent-wise, and for what he's already accomplished in WWE, I think he's above what they had him doing tonight. I really do. It should have been Gallows and Anderson against the Revival tonight, and that's not what we got. But to no one's surprise, Balor and Anderson won the match. So, okay, on upward and onward, right? After that, we had a very awkward backstage segment where Bayley approaches Sasha Banks, who for the 20th time was watching herself get beat by Asuka last week, and they have this back and forth that gets kind of tense between them, where Bayley says, well, I'm going to beat Asuka because I know I can beat you. And Sasha Banks was like, well, I'm not going to tell you what you should do to beat her. And by the way, I threw you over the top rope because it was just business at the Royal Rumble. And so obviously we're beginning to progress the tension between these two. And I think it's high time they did that. They've been teasing this literally for months now. So I hope this pays off somewhere down the line.
Interestingly enough, tonight really led me to believe that they're actually doing more with Sasha and Bayley than they are with Finn Balor.
Right, exactly. And listen, right now they are focusing heavily on the women's division. In fact, I believe there were 3 women's matches tonight, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there were. So they're focusing very heavily on the women's division. I'm okay with that. That's fine. As a matter of fact, after that backstage segment between Bayley and Sasha Banks, we had a match so there were 9 matches on the show tonight. If there was any one match that I probably would have cut from the show, it was this next one. And that match was Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali versus Drew Gulak and Tony Nese's Apps. Okay? If there was any match I would have cut, it's that. And for one simple reason. Don't get mad at me, folks. The reason I would have cut this match is because there is a dedicated show for this division. The Cruiserweight division has its own show. It's called 205 Live. So I don't understand why a division that has its own show also gets a match on a Raw where there's already so much going on. Your thoughts on that, CW?
It wasn't just a match either. It was a tag match. So we have a creative team that's already not doing anything with the Raw tag team division, bringing in tag matches from 205. Can you explain this to me?
Yeah, from a business standpoint, I kind of understand what their thinking is. It's like they want to drive the ratings on 205 Live by featuring the Cruiserweight division on Raw because they figure, 3 million people a week watch Raw. So if they watch and see what these guys can do, then maybe they'll go over to the network and watch 205 Live. I don't know if that's actually playing out, but to me, dude, we're already doing so much. There needed to be more time to develop certain other things tonight. So for me, if there was anything I would have cut, it would have been this match. It was a relatively short match. Alexander and Ollie ended up winning when Alexander hit the lumbar check. So anyway, after that, we had Kurt Angle come out, and this got really interesting. So he came out to announce who the participants in the first ever women's Elimination Chamber match were going to be. Obviously, one of them is Alexa Bliss because this match is for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. So Alexa Bliss is in the match, and in the Elimination Chamber, she will be facing and none of these names were a surprise, really. She'll be facing Bayley, Mandy Rose, Mickie James, Sonya Deville, and Sasha Banks. There was one noticeable absence, but Kurt Angle ended up covering that one. He pointed out that the reason Nia Jax is not in the match is because she will be facing Asuka at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. We knew that this was coming eventually. We knew that these two were going to end up facing each other. I didn't know it was going to be so soon, but it turns out that if Nia Jax wins the match, she gets included in the Raw Women's Championship match at WrestleMania. So Asuka's already in that match because she won the Royal Rumble. If Nia Jax can beat Asuka at the Elimination Chamber, then it becomes a three-way at WrestleMania between Nia Jax and Asuka and whoever ends up winning the Elimination Chamber match at that pay-per-view. Now, heads up, I don't see Nia Jax winning against Asuka. I don't think they're going to have Asuka lose for a while, and I certainly don't think it's going to be to Nia Jax. There's internet rumors out there that her first loss will be to Ronda Rousey. We'll see about that. So anyway, that's the deal. Now, Kurt Angle makes the announcement. None of the names in the Elimination Chamber were a surprise to me. He pointed out that he didn't include Nia Jax because he's got something else special for her. And then out comes Alexa Bliss. Now, we had seen Kurt Angle and Alexa Bliss talking backstage before he came out to make the announcement. But she came out and she looked plenty pissed off. CW. She was pissed off and she grabbed a mic and she actually made a pretty good point. She pointed out that we're having this women's evolution, that company policy is that you don't treat the women any differently than you do the men. And then she said, so explain to me then why the women's Elimination Chamber match is for my championship, but the men's Elimination Chamber match is not for Brock Lesnar's championship. Why does he get a pass at this pay-per-view and I don't? And I thought that was a really creative way to drive that point home. You know, Alexa Bliss has been known her whole championship run as being kind of a schemer, a conniver. She gets with people and tries to get them to take it easy on her in matches, and she tries to act like she's buddies with people and whatnot. But I thought this was a fresh approach where she came at Kurt Angle with, how are you going to make me put my title on the line in an Elimination Chamber, and you're not making Brock Lesnar do that? CW, your thoughts?
I think that Little Miss Bliss has been paying attention to the internet a lot. She said basically what a lot of people have been thinking about Brock Lesnar. She called him out for pretty much, not showing up all the time. And she the way she worded it was clever. Honestly, I have not been a big fan of hers before, but what she said was pretty accurate. So I can't really say anything bad about it at all.
Oh, I thought that was a fantastic segment. Finally, somebody on camera says what we've all been complaining about since he won the title from Goldberg at WrestleMania. And you and I spent a lot of time on this on the Royal Rumble post-show. We talked about why is it that Brock Lesnar only has to wrestle once every 3 months? How is it that he just gets to show up whenever he feels like it, and he's the champion? And Alexa Bliss came out tonight and just flat said it on the show. Wow, I did not expect that from the writers, from Vince. That surprised me. So my question is, are they trying to send a message to Brock Lesnar by letting her do that? Or, what was that? I'm sure she didn't come out there and just freelance that.
I can only hope that she freelanced that. That's my hope. I'm hoping that Vince they had no clue what she was going to say, and she just, that's my hope, and let me have my hope. But I know for real that Vince had to have approved it, and for Vince to approve it, it might not have been Vince it could have been somebody high up in the chain. I'm not going to say Vince 100% approved it himself, because it could have been Triple H, it could have been anybody that approved it. But it was approved, and it really set what a lot of people were thinking, a lot of people have said. So the point is, where does it go from here? Are they going to keep making little small jabs at him, it makes you wonder.
Well, I was surprised by two things in this. One, that it got said, because like I said, you and I lit up Lesnar last week about that very issue. And then out comes one of the WWE superstars to do it right there on camera. And then the second thing that surprised me was that it was Alexa Bliss who did it. I thought that was a really strong segment on her part, and very correct also. You know, she had a great point there. But Kurt Angle decided to take the high road, and he said, you know what, I'm going to leave it up to the crowd to decide whether you should be in that match or not. Well, of course the crowd wants to see her get her butt kicked by 5 other people. Of course they want that. So, we got the Daniel Bryan yes chance when he put it to the crowd. So the match is happening either way. It is worth mentioning, though, again, more foreshadowing here, that is not the last time we saw Alexa Bliss tonight. She didn't wrestle, but she did do something else important later on. We'll get back to that. All right, so after that, we got Cena doing his cell phone promo. He was set up for a 3-way with Braun Strowman and Elias later in the night, the winner of which would be the last entrant into the Elimination Chamber match. Strowman, Cena, and Elias are all 3 already in the match. So, again, the winner of that 3-way at the end of the night was going to be the last person to have to enter the Elimination Chamber. Cena, by the way, has won the Elimination Chamber 3 times out of the 6 that he's been in the match, and one of those times he was the number 6 entrant. So getting into that match last is kind of an important thing. It's sort of like being the number 30 entrant into the Royal Rumble. The later you get into that match, the better for you, because everybody else is already beat up by the time you get there. Anyway, after that, we had match number 4, and that was Asuka versus Bayley. We already knew this match was coming from the Bayley-Sasha Banks segment backstage a couple of segments earlier. There was no mystery about this match at all. Obviously, Asuka was going to win the match. I'm going to tell you, though, I did not expect it to be as brutal, and I didn't expect Bayley to give quite the beating to Asuka that she did. But, man, I thought it was a fantastic match. I really did. It was hard-hitting. It was hard-nosed. And, that was kind of the theme of the 3 women's matches that we saw tonight, just very brutal and hard-hitting. And I like that. I think, we shouldn't treat them any different from the men. They should go out there and do exactly what the men do. And this match, in my opinion, delivered. Of course, Asuka won the match, but Bayley actually, there was a point toward the end of the match where Bayley reversed a move by Asuka and pinned her and got within, a cat whisker of actually scoring the win before Asuka flipped her around and put her in an arm bar and made her tap. After the match, Asuka stood up. She was kind of holding her jaw a little bit because, she was selling some injury there. And she actually shook Bayley's hand in a sign of respect because Bayley tonight came closer to beating Asuka than anybody else ever has. CW, your thoughts?
Tonight's match was very good between those 2. It impressed me. I can't really say that, the end surprised me because, well, it's Asuka. We already know that Asuka's not losing for a while. Bayley did show a lot of people that she deserves to be at least featured more often than she is instead of forgotten on shows, which is a good thing. The main thing that got me was at the end of the match was the sign of respect from Asuka, because that is one thing that, as we saw from the Royal Rumble, the last person that tried to shake Asuka's hand that was slapped away, and here we go with the Bayley and Asuka goes ahead and extends her hand to shake Bayley's hand. So take of that as what you will.
Well, Bayley is a fantastic wrestler. And for what it's worth, Asuka's match with Bayley tonight was much better than the one she had with Sasha Banks last week, in my opinion. I just thought it was a tighter match. I thought it was more brutal and hard-hitting. I thought Bayley really took it to her. And Bayley came, again, within a cat whisker of actually pinning Asuka tonight. But Asuka, not surprisingly, ended up reversing it into an armbar. And Bayley actually fought the armbar for a while before she finally succumbed to it. So it was just a tight match all around. And by the way, I want to actually give props to the commentators of that match tonight because they helped with the storytelling in that match. There's a story unfolding with Asuka where she is eventually going to lose to somebody, whether it's Rousey or it's Nia Jax or it's somebody down the road. Asuka will eventually lose a match. But in order to take away some of the problem that Goldberg had when he went through his initial streak back in WCW days, they made Goldberg so unbeatable. Every match he was in, he won in like 35 seconds flat. They made him so unbeatable that when he finally did lose, his whole thing just sort of fell apart. They're very carefully avoiding that with Asuka now. And the commentators tonight, Cole and Corey Graves and Coach, actually did a very good job of helping build toward her eventual loss when they pointed out that Asuka's still winning, and she hasn't lost in 2.5 years or whatever, but every week it's getting harder and harder. She's getting challenged more and more, and it's becoming harder and harder for her to win these matches. So I thought that them throwing that in there tonight actually did Asuka a lot of favors. So when she eventually does lose, it's still going to be a holy crap moment, but it's not going to completely destroy her because she's almost losing a lot now. She's still pulling these wins out. But these girls are really giving her a run for it when they wrestle her now, especially Bayley tonight. I mean, it was they actually showed a slow motion replay of how close the referee's hand to hitting the ground was when Asuka kicked out. So, you know, they're really doing a smart job of building Asuka up as unbeatable, but also beatable at the same time, if that makes any sense.
They're doing the smart thing with her. They're putting her over very strong, but it's not exactly the Goldberg treatment they're giving her, I would say. It's more, she has been allowed to showcase how strong she is, but even before she got called up, to the main roster, you know, the matches that she was having in, you know, NXT before she got called up, I mean, there were some really good matches, and there were lots of false finishes in those. So it's not that it's just, you know, they're not just throwing her on the main roster without any history at all to it. It's her whole thing. She's been pulling out win after win after win, and here, right before they brought her up to the main roster, is when it really started to, maybe she is beatable, maybe, you know, and that's, you know, it's been a one long progression of her character, and they've been handling it magnificently. They have showcased with it while she is strong, if she is a great athlete, that one day there will be somebody that will beat her, and it leaves the fans to wondering who can beat Asuka, who's going to beat Asuka.
Yeah, so for Asuka, it is, you can actually imagine in your mind a scenario in which she loses a match based on the way they're presenting her right now. She has not lost in 2.5 years, but she has to really work for it to win these matches. Whereas with the Goldberg thing, he won, 176 straight matches in WCW over a 1.5 year period?
And all of them in under 3 minutes.
Yeah, but they were all just squash jobs. I mean, yeah, somebody would hit him a little bit, maybe make him go down to one knee or whatever, but they were all squash jobs, every last one of those wins. Even when he wrestled Hulk Hogan, who was the standard bearer in the industry back at that point, even Hulk Hogan, I mean, he crushed him. You know, it just, Goldberg, you could not imagine Goldberg losing a match the way he was winning every time. And so Asuka, it's different, though. She actually has to work her rear end off to win a match. And tonight she came within a cat whisker of losing. And so when she did win, it was like Bayley really gave it. So it did two things. It actually made it possible in your imagination that someday Asuka could lose a match. But at the same time, it made Bayley look like $1 million. And I wonder how that's going to feed into her eventual feud with Sasha Banks. Because I can see her going, you know, Asuka beat you pretty easily, but man, I almost had her. So what does that say about us? So I think Asuka's one of those rare gifts that doesn't just give to the feud that she's in. Asuka kind of permeates feuds throughout that whole division. She's kind of the standard bearer right now, even though she's not the champion yet, although we're all pretty sure she's going to be. But she's kind of the standard bearer that everybody measures themselves against in that division. And so you saw Bayley and Sasha Banks arguing tonight about which one of them was better based on their performances against Asuka. So she's just that rare gift, and I'm so glad she's in this division. I think the whole division is better with her in it, to be honest with you. All right, so the next thing we saw was the Bar doing their cell phone promo. Nothing to see there. It was just the standard crap. The next match was The Miz versus Apollo Crews. This was another Elimination Chamber qualifier. Was there any mystery about who was going to win this match? No. Because when does Apollo Crews ever beat anybody that matters? The answer to that, never. Miz won the match, nothing to see here. So he's in the Elimination Chamber now. Strowman did his cell phone promo, and we'll move on from that. Match number 7, Nia Jax versus some jobber. They literally it looked like they just pulled some chick out of the audience to fight her tonight. And that match lasted 30 seconds, I guess. Jax squashed her. That was the end of that. The only important part of that whole match was after she finished squashing this jobber. Her name was like Vanessa something or another. Doesn't matter. After that match, Nia Jax grabbed him, or Renee Young came in the ring to interview her and asked her, so you have to face Asuka at the Elimination Chamber. And Nia Jax said, when I'm done with her, she's not going to be the Empress of Tomorrow. She's going to be the Empress of Yesterday. So Nia Jax is calling her shot here. Nia Jax is saying that she's going to render Asuka irrelevant and that she is going to join that match at WrestleMania for the championship. CW, are you buying or selling Nia Jax on the microphone?
Honestly, the promo wasn't that bad. I think if they were to give her, more time, it would be a good thing. But she definitely puts off like she could be a dominating force. I would like to see a little bit more aggression with her. But all in all, it wasn't that bad of a promo.
Well, it was not an organic delivery. Clearly, promos are not her strong suit. Clearly, those lines were written by somebody else, and she memorized them before she went out there. I understand that. So they weren't delivered organically. Okay, it sounded a little bit like she was reading them off of a cue card. But the lines were strong and they were relevant to what she was talking about. I like how she made a play on Asuka's nickname as the Empress of Tomorrow. No, when I'm done with her, she's going to be the Empress of Yesterday. So I'm with you, though. I want, as aggressive as Nia Jax is in the ring, I want to see her be more aggressive in delivering those lines. I want to see her actually pour some feeling into what she's saying. A sneer, a growl, something. Give me something, Nia, that makes me believe you when you say these things. It's kind of hard for me to imagine, even as big of a dynamo, even as dynamic as Asuka is in the ring, it's still cognitively a little hard for me to imagine a woman who is 6 feet tall, 272 pounds, losing to somebody the size of Asuka. I don't even know how that match is going to go yet, but we do know that Nia is going to lose that match. But it's kind of hard to believe on a cognitive level, isn't it?
It'll be an interesting match. And honestly, I'm looking forward to this match because if Sasha and Bayley can start making it look like Asuka's vulnerable, then what can a monster like Nia Jax do?
Well, I mean, if it was a real fight in a back alley, she'd probably just throw her down and sit on her. If Nia Jax were to sit on top of Asuka, there's no way she kicks out of that. There's just no way. I don't think Asuka can bench press 272 pounds. I really don't. So she's going to have to get creative to win the match. I like the fact that they're putting Asuka in a match that she seemingly should not be able to win physically, but you somehow know she's going to because she's Asuka. And they, the difference between Asuka and Nia Jax is that Asuka is a larger-than-life character. Nia Jax is a larger-than-life wrestler. Size-wise, she is so much bigger than everybody else in the division, in either division, Raw or SmackDown. I mean, she is a very, very significantly physically gifted person. And you look at the two of them standing next to each other, and it's hard to imagine that Asuka could actually physically defeat her, even as hard as her strikes are. She's got to put some stank on those things to drop somebody the size of Nia Jax. But yet somehow she's going to end up winning this match. And we've seen various strategies for defeating Nia Jax. But usually it includes 4 or 5 or 6 women at once ganging up on her. In this case, it's going to be a one-on-one singles match. And I don't know how Asuka pulls it off. I just know she's going to. I just hope they find a way to do it that's somewhat believable. And look, I know this is wrestling. You have to suspend a lot of disbelief with some of the stuff that goes on. But in this case, I hope they find a way to do it that at least tells a story that I can buy into, if that makes any sense. So I don't see Nia Jax winning this match. I don't think that the women's championship match at WrestleMania is going to end up being a three-way, unless there's some kind of really screwy finish. But I just don't think Nia Jax is the one who's going to end Asuka's streak.
I don't think so either. As much as a physical monster Nia Jax is, they really haven't had and the WWE has done a great job at building her up as a monster. But in singles competition, what has she actually done?
Well, I mean, they haven't really let her be in a whole lot of singles matches. They showed a video package on her before this match where she was just destroying people, throwing them around the ring, slamming into them, throwing them into ring aprons, throwing them into, the ring posts. And I mean, just absolutely destroying people left and right. But a lot of the matches we see Nia Jax in some weeks she doesn't show up at all. But a lot of the matches we see her in are usually tag team matches where she can be ganged up on, or four-way matches where she can be ganged up on, or over-the-top rope matches where she can be ganged up on. And while that's a smart way to book her not winning a match like that, sooner or later you have to let her win, don't you? What's the point of her being out there if she's going to always lose? I mean, we don't need a female Big Show, okay? Big Show for most of his career has been, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but he's kind of been enhancement. He's the guy that always puts other people over. Every once in a while he gets his very brief run with a world heavyweight title, or a brief run with a tag team championship with somebody else. But a guy that big should win more than they let him win. Nia Jax should win more than they let her win. And putting her against Asuka, I think it's an interesting matchup from a physical standpoint. And I like the stipulation they put on it, because now not only does Nia Jax have the size and strength advantage in that match, now she has incentive to win it. So it's only going to make Asuka look even better when she defeats somebody who's both bigger than her and more motivated. So, I mean, I can only assume that's what the whole point of this is. But anyway, we actually moved on from that match right to another female match, and that was Sonya Deville versus Mickie James. Let me stop on this one for a minute. Mickie James, when they first brought her back, I wasn't sure what the plan was. It appears to this point like the plan was for her to come back and put everybody else over. They haven't let her win a title match. They gave her that one shot at the championship where she wrestled against Alexa Bliss. Actually cut some really strong promos. She's been wrestling fantastic. She's still a fantastic wrestler in the ring, but they haven't really let her get over. So up to this point, it has appeared that the plan with Mickie James was to just bring her in to be the experience in the division, to let her still do what she loves to do. But your job, Mickie, is to be the gatekeeper, and you get to be the measuring stick that they go up against, so that when they beat you, it's a big deal, because you're a 6-time former Divas and Women's Champion. It's a big deal to beat Mickie James. So we're going to let people beat you so that they can be a big deal. That appears to be what the plan has been with her so far. When I saw this match tonight, Sonya Deville is hot right now. She's with Absolution. Obviously, Paige can't wrestle anymore, but she's still coming out with her girls. And they've been really pushing Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose as a big deal. And so I had it in my head tonight. Every other match tonight I had successfully predicted. So when I saw that Sonya Deville was taking on Mickie James, I just went, well, Sonya Deville's winning this match. And then Mickie won the match instead. Very surprising to me. But as surprising as it was that Mickie won that match, that wasn't even the most surprising part of that whole thing. So Mickie wins the match, Absolution jumps on her and starts beating her down. And then she got a save from Alexa Bliss, of all people. Mickie James is in that Elimination Chamber match against Alexa Bliss. And Alexa Bliss came out and saved her bacon tonight. And I thought when she was bringing her back up the ramp that she was going to end up turning on her or something like that. But she didn't. CW, why did Alexa Bliss save Mickie James tonight?
Because she's smart. She wants as many people on her side when she goes into that chamber as she can get.
Alexa Bliss is one of those people that you never trust. I'll give you a great example of a man in the business who you should never trust when he was still wrestling, and that was Edge, the ultimate opportunist, right?
Exactly.
Alexa Bliss kind of reminds me of a female Edge. She's always looking for the shortcut to win. She's always looking to buddy up with people to keep from getting her butt kicked. Like we saw her trying to buddy up with Nia Jax a lot, and that wound up backfiring on her. But we've seen her before try to make friends with people that she has to go up against so that they feel sorry for her in the ring, or they help her get rid of other people or whatever. But I'm telling you right now, I think I'm with you, CW. I think she saved Mickie James tonight so that she can count on her to help her in the Elimination Chamber. But the second she gets rid of everybody else, if it comes down to those two, Alexa's going to turn on her. She's an opportunist. And I think her saving Mickie James tonight was not about her care and concern for Mickie James. It was not about her hatred of Absolution. I think the reason she saved Mickie James tonight is because she needs an ally in that Elimination Chamber. You might actually see her try to do favors for some of the other girls prior to this pay-per-view. You might actually see her try to do other favors for these girls going into that match. But the fact is, Alexa Bliss is only about one person, and that's Alexa Bliss. So I'm with you. I think she saved Mickie James tonight because she needs an ally in that chamber. Wow, that was our 8th match of the night, and I knew we still had one more coming. So coming out of that match, Elias, of course, was in the ring with his guitar to do his shtick. See, they didn't give him a cell phone and tell him to cut a video like they did Braun Strowman and John Cena. They actually had Elias come out and do his for the live crowd, which is fine because, honestly, I like Elias's shtick. I like what he does. I like his, he comes out there and he does his cheap Your Town Sucks heat, and, I mean, he did. He crapped all over Iowa tonight. This godforsaken wasteland, and even for people like you, and, he, of course, talked down to the crowd to get him going. I love that. I think he's very good at it. He got interrupted, though, in the middle of his song by John Cena. I thought it was interesting tonight that John Cena came out before Braun Strowman did. Usually the bigger star in the match is the one who gets brought out last. It's called top billing. John Cena did not get top billing in this match. Braun Strowman did. What did you think of that?
It would have surprised me if they hadn't put Braun Strowman. They have been building up Braun Strowman as a monster, as a viable threat to Lesnar. That is what they have been doing for months, is building him up as a viable contender for the championship whenever he gets a chance to get it. If he ever gets a one-on-one chance, it'll make it seem like, oh, well, he can get this. He can do this. And that's what they have been doing the entire time. Whereas Cena is a part-timer. Yeah, we all expect Cena to break the record at some point in time that was set by Flair. But do I think it will be against Lesnar? No. It doesn't even... No. Do I think that Braun Strowman has a chance? Yeah. Do I know who they're probably going to go with? It's looking like they're probably going to go with Reigns. But either way, they have been building up Braun Strowman for so long as this monster that if they did not give him top billing, then what is the point of building him up to be larger than life?
I get what you're saying. This is 16-time World Heavyweight Champion John Cena, though. This guy's carried this company for a decade and a half. So it surprised me a little bit that he didn't get top billing in the match. Although, I guess on a certain level it makes sense that Cena would be the one to interrupt Elias's crap, okay? I thought it would end up being Strowman that interrupted him because Strowman was the one that Elias was talking about when Cena broke it up. But, all right, so we got what we got. Incidentally, I'm just going to throw this in there and then we can get back to the match. I do firmly believe you're right that Cena will eventually break Ric Flair's record and win his 17th world title. I have mixed feelings about whether that's going to be on Raw or SmackDown, though. See, Cena has this luxury that nobody else has in the business, and that is that he can go back and forth between the shows as he so desires. He's the free agent. So sometimes you're going to see him in a Raw feud. Sometimes you're going to see him in a SmackDown feud. Now, when he wins that 17th world title, is it going to be the Universal Championship or is it going to be the WWE Championship? It's more believable from a physical standpoint that he would win the title on SmackDown because the guys over there are just smaller. AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, even Randy Orton, they're all smaller than guys like Lesnar, Strowman. So, to me, it would be more believable from a physical standpoint that he would win the WWE Championship. And there's also a certain poetic justice to him winning that WWE title because it's the first world title he ever won, was the lineal WWE Championship. And so for him to win that title and make it his last title, there's kind of a sort of a poetic coming around full circle for his career with that. However, there's also something to be said for him winning the one title he's never won, which is the Universal Championship. And only like 4 guys have ever held that title anyway. I'm thinking of Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Brock Lesnar, Goldberg. I think those are the only 4 guys that have ever held that Universal title, aren't they? So I could see Cena coming in and winning that title just to complete the resume because he doesn't have that championship on his resume. But at the same time, again, it just seems a little physically more believable that he would win over on SmackDown because the guys over there are just smaller. Now, having said that, we have seen Cena defeat Brock Lesnar before. I mean, he has beaten Brock Lesnar before. So it's not like he can't do that. But here nor there, the match tonight between Strowman, Cena, and Elias, I kind of had a sense that Strowman was not going to win that match. First of all, it seemed just a little too obvious. And then secondly, why would Strowman want to be the last guy in the match? Why would he want to pick over the leftovers in an Elimination Chamber match? Strowman's the kind of guy that wants to deal as much misery as he can. So I don't see a guy like Strowman having a problem with being the first or even the second guy into the Elimination Chamber. That's just more people he gets to beat up. He comes in last, maybe he picks off the last guy who's already been beaten to a pulp. But no, Strowman does not win this match tonight. I thought, well, okay, it probably makes sense then that Cena would win to create the idea that he's going to win the Elimination Chamber, and then he doesn't. It would be a nice little swerve. So then, CW, please tell me exactly why the winner of that match tonight ended up being Elias, of all people.
He's the one that needed it the most. You have John Cena, who has been in several Elimination Chambers. You have Braun Strowman, a freaking monster. Then you have Elias, who's never been in one of these and who is not anywhere near physically as imposing as Braun Strowman. He needs it.
Okay, I guess I can buy that. You know, Elias has really been building up credibility, both with his character and his wrestling over the last few months. But the fact is, he does not have the credibility of Braun Strowman, who they've been building up for over a year now. And nobody in the business has the credibility that John Cena does. I'm sorry, they just don't. 16 world championships. The guy's literally held every title there is, okay? So it made total sense. Well, I take that back. I don't think he's ever been Intercontinental Champion. But Cena has 16 world titles on his resume. So obviously he has credibility to last 7 eternities, okay? You're right. Elias was the one who needed the win tonight. But typically, you know, and I figured whoever won, stipulating that it wasn't going to be Braun Strowman, was not going to get to pin Braun Strowman to win the match. But even when Braun Strowman doesn't win a match, he doesn't take the pinfall in it. That's why you see him in a lot of three-way situations, so that when he doesn't win the match, it's not him that has to take the loss. So Cena ended up taking the pinfall from Elias tonight after Braun Strowman hit him with a running power slam. Then Elias threw Braun Strowman out of the ring and pinned Cena. But then what happened after that was as Michael Cole would say, vintage Braun Strowman. After Elias won the match, Braun Strowman came back in the ring, and he laid out both Cena and Elias with, I think it was 3 running power slams each. And I'm going to tell you right now, you know why I'm a big Braun Strowman fan right now? Not because of the physicality that he brings to the ring, but because that dude has learned how to work a crowd. Did you see what he did tonight? It wasn't just the power slams that he laid out Cena and Elias with. Tell our audience what he did tonight with the audience.
He basically let the audience decide. Like, I mean, several times he would start to walk away, and then the audience would just feed him. He ate their energy up so well, and he reacted perfectly. It's almost like we have seen Braun Strowman go from being the Rosebud to being probably the best big man in the business today. I can't even say it any other way.
Dude, Braun Strowman had that entire audience eating right out of the palm of his hand, and he worked that crowd to perfection. I mean, you're right. After he laid them out with 1 power slam each, he went to climb out of the ring, and he got one leg over the ropes, and he heard the audience, and he kind of looked around, and the facial expression he gave the audience was like, really? And they encouraged him, and he came back in the ring. He laid them out again. And as he was getting ready to leave, he stopped and stared at him, and he got the reaction he wanted, and so he just kept laying them out time after time after time. That dude, obviously he can physically lay waste to anybody he wants to, but the way he worked that crowd tonight, Braun Strowman is not just another big meathead, okay? He's got something Mark Henry never had. He's got something that Big Cass doesn't have. He's got something that I would argue even Kevin Nash didn't have. Kevin Nash could cut really good promos, but Braun Strowman was working that crowd with facial expressions, with hand gestures, and you're right, he was feeding off that crowd. The dude, that crowd was feeding off of Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman has found, as Chris Jericho would say, it. He has found it. Whatever it is, Braun Strowman has it. And, dude, I saw that tonight more than I've ever seen it at any other time from him. We've all seen him dump over ambulances and tear down staging. And we've seen him dump over announce booths. We've seen him do all the physical things he does and destroy people. Of course he does that. But tonight was the most profound example I've seen out of Braun Strowman yet, where he was working the crowd. Whether you like it or you don't, folks, Braun Strowman is a babyface. He just is. That crowd loves him. He loves that crowd. And, man, there was a chemistry between Braun Strowman and that crowd tonight that made that whole thing work. Elias got the win. Braun Strowman got the audience. CW?
Like I said, Braun Strowman has went literally from being one of the rosebuds to being arguably one of the best big men in the business. He knows how to work a crowd. He knows his moveset. He knows how to add to his moveset when needs be, and it makes sense. If he were to do anything else, it wouldn't fit his character. It fits for him to be this massive beast that just destroys whatever's in his path. And the WWE, that one thing I can give them credit is they have built Braun Strowman marvelously.
Yeah, what's funny to me is everything that they're getting wrong with Bray Wyatt, everything that they're getting wrong with that guy right there, they are getting absolutely right with Braun Strowman. So he is a rare combination of charisma and physicality. We've seen big guys come and go that just didn't cut it, but this guy has it, and I think they're booking him fantastically. He's taking the ball and running with it. He's going to be world champion one of these days. And what I love about Braun Strowman is that he's different from Brock Lesnar in that he doesn't have to have a Paul Heyman to cut promos for him. He doesn't need a carnival barker to get him over. He just goes out there, destroys people, and he knows how to work a crowd without really saying much. And there's something to be said for that.
And
when
Braun Strowman does say something, though, it's almost always T-shirt worthy material. That is the thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to be said for the fact that he doesn't talk very much. Obviously, a guy that can do what he does doesn't really need to say a lot. But you're right. When he does say it, it's meaningful and it's impactful and it's engaging. So kudos to Braun Strowman. Kudos to the WWE powers that be for pushing this guy and giving him the opportunities. But, man, he deserves all the credit for running with it. So, listen, this show tonight was, in my opinion, tons better than the one last week. I think a lot of important things got done tonight. I like some of the subtle ways in which they're pushing storylines forward. The Bayley-Sasha Banks thing was important tonight. The Seth Rollins-Jason Jordan thing was important tonight. And by the way, we didn't even get to that match. We forgot to even talk about the fact that Seth Rollins was supposed to have a rematch with The Bar with Jason Jordan for the tag titles. And what ended up happening there was Jason Jordan decided before the match that he wasn't physically ready to go after all. And so Seth Rollins had to get a replacement for that match, and he wound up grabbing Roman Reigns. And they were on their way to winning that match when Jason Jordan decided to go out there and get involved in it. And he ended up getting them disqualified because he struck, I think it was Sheamus in the face. And so now we've got some real heat between Seth Rollins and Jason Jordan. Now they've got tangible heat. There was awkwardness and there was kind of mistrust before, but now there's like a tangible reason for Seth Rollins to really be pissed at Jason Jordan. So that was an important development tonight. We saw an important development in Nia Jax's career. We saw Asuka come closer than she ever has to losing a match. And a lot of good stuff happened tonight. Braun Strowman just owned in his segment. So tonight's show, much better than last week. I hope that as we move forward, that they'll continue to develop the things that need to be developed. And, man, I got to tell you, at this time last year going into WrestleMania, I wasn't really all that jazzed up. But right now, I cannot wait for the show. I'm going to be there again this year, and I can't wait to see what happens because we got a lot of good things going heading up to it. CW, any last words before we wrap?
Like you said, this week's show was measurably better. It's not that it had more wrestling, it's that it had better quality wrestling. This show showed me that the women's division definitely has better writers than the men's division, but it was a very good show overall.
Well, last week they crammed 7 matches into the show, and some of those were just matches for the sake of matches. And there were a lot of big-name stars missing from the show last week. This week, we had 9 matches, but the difference is there were more matches this week, but the difference is nearly every match we saw tonight was important to the story that it was trying to tell. Nearly every match tonight had something to do with a storyline that is still developing. So it wasn't just that we were having matches to fill time tonight. The matches this week felt more intentional and they felt more relevant to what's actually going on in all the storylines that we have right now. So I thought it was a very coherent show. I thought it was a well-booked show, and I thought it was kind of an important show heading into WrestleMania in April. So, folks, there you have it. If you didn't get to see the match tonight and all you know about it is what we just told you, do yourself a favor. Go back and watch the clips of it. I'm sure you can find them anywhere on the internet. But go back and try to watch this show if you can, because a lot of the stuff that happened tonight was kind of important. So, anyway, well, listen, that's going to do it for another edition of the Raw Recap. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for supporting us. I want to encourage you to go to AngryMarks.com, check out all the show recaps that we do, check out all the news items. They get posted at least twice a day that I know of. Check out all the videos on there. Check out all the podcasts that we do. There are a lot of folks at AngryMarks.com that work very hard to bring you the latest news and all the important stuff you need to know about professional wrestling today. So please go to AngryMarks.com, check it out, and tune in next week again for another episode of the Raw Reaction on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. Thank you and good night.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.